Jason Voorhees was born to Pamela Voorhees and an unknown father in 1969. Born disfigured and mentally challenged, he would face an endless amount of bullying as a child, which would come to its head when Jason was 11 years old and into the lake by a group of kids and would seemingly drown, causing his mother to snap and go on a killing spree, which would only be stopped when she would be killed in self-defense in front of him. Scared and having nowhere to go, Jason would live in the woods for the next 30 years, killing people who came into the camp, gaining a reputation as a ruthless slasher. In 2008, he would find yet another group of trespassers and would kill them, but this time would spare a single girl, Whitney, who looked like a younger version of Pamela. For 6 weeks, Jason would keep Whitney captive until yet another group of teens would show up along with Whitney's brother Clay, and he would slaughter them one by one until only Clay and an escaped Whitney would be left, and he would follow them to a barn where he would fight Clay, nearly killing him, before Whitney would wrap a chain with one end placed into a wood chipper around his neck. Jason would fight against this for a short minute, only for Whitney to stab him in the chest, seemingly killing him. The siblings would then toss Jason's unconscious body into the lake, awakening him once again, and he would immediately attack, likely killing them and returning to his old life. Michael Myers was born in 1980 to Deborah Myers and an unknown father. His childhood would be dysfunctional to say the least, with his mother's boyfriend Robbie constantly threatening him, and his elder sister Judith hating him. This would result in Michael's development being stumped, with him never developing a sense of empathy for others and even violent tendencies, such as harming small animals. The only people Michael seemed to care about was his mother and baby sister Angel. At the age of 10, on Halloween, Michael would get into a fight with a bully from school, and afterward would follow him into the woods and beat the boy to death. That night, while his mother was at work, he would snap, tying up Ronnie and slitting his throat before beating his sister's boyfriend to death, and finally stabbing Judith 17 times, killing her. He would then wait with Angel in his arms outside for his mother to return home, where she would find the aftermath of his actions and would turn him in. Afterwards, he would be forced to stay at Smith's Grove Sanitarium, where at first he would be the model inmate, causing no trouble and even making friends with one of the security guards and his psychiatrist Sam Loomis. However, as time went on, Michael would become more detached and would even kill a nurse for insulting him. Seeing this and being unable to cope with her son's true nature, Deborah would kill herself. Over the next 15 years, Michael would stay in Smith's Grove, and during this time would never say a word to anyone. After Dr. Loomis would part way with him, Michael would break out, killing several guards on the way out, and on his way back to Haddonfield, Michael would make a stop, killing a truck driver and taking his clothes, and retrieving the same knife and mask he used to kill his sister. However, now back home, Michael would begin to search for his younger sister, now named Laurie Strode, killing several people along the way, as well as a couple of her friends and her foster parents before finally finding Laurie and taking her back to their childhood home. Laurie would try to escape and would even be helped by Dr. Loomis, but ultimately would be found by Michael and he would tackle her off the balcony. But after recovering and grabbing Loomis's gun, she'd shoot him in the head. Somehow surviving this, Michael would be placed in an ambulance, and after it crashed, he would escape, killing one of the paramedics. Michael, possibly suffering from brain damage, would begin to see his mother, who would tell him to lay low until the time was right, and following her orders, he would keep hidden for 2 years before striking again, slaughtering everyone in his path to his sister, eventually finding her at her house and taking her to a cabin where the apparently supernatural version of himself would keep Laurie from moving, and Dr. Loomis would intervene to try and save Laurie, but would ultimately be killed by Michael. After this, he and his sister would be gunned down by police, and they would be reunited with their mother as a family. Hello and welcome everyone to a match requested by the Batman of Neo Gotham that I realized far too late should have been planned for October. And today I have been asked to bring you Jason Voorhees versus Michael Myers. But instead of the classic versions, it's been requested that I use the remake/reboot versions, which means that for my sources I will only be using the 2009 Friday the 13th movie and the Rob Zombie directed Halloween films. So with that out of the way, let's begin. During the events of the movie, Jason is around 39 years old, sitting at 6 feet 5 inches and weighing around 200 pounds, nearing the end of his physical prime. As he's spent decades surviving alone in the woods, Jason has, either intentionally or not, conditioned his body to perform above that of a normal human. He has shown several times that he can easily throw a 50-pound canoe with a single hand, can break through a wood floor or dock with raw strength, lift a full-grown adult with no difficulty, and can easily cut and stab through bone. His speed is really nothing special, with his only feats being that he can easily react to attacks from his victims. Stamina is about what you would expect for someone who spent nearly 30 years surviving in the wilderness, as in the movie he doesn't show any fatigue from doing things that would certainly strain normal people. We only have one durability feat to go off of, that being when he survived getting stabbed in the chest by Whitney and was only knocked out for a few hours. This is actually rather impressive, however, as the amount of vital areas that were likely damaged by this, it realistically should have killed him due to the fact that he received no medical attention afterwards. Besides that, he hasn't really survived any fatal wounds and reacts to damage the same as anyone else. At the time of his death, Michael was a 29-year-old man standing at 6 feet 8 inches tall and weighing 325 pounds. And was in the middle of his physical prime. This version of Michael would best be described as being built like a shit brick house. This mountain of a man has either built himself to be a walking killing machine or simply grew into this size naturally. Either way, Michael is incredibly powerful, being able to smash through walls with brute force alone, broke a woman's neck with a single hand, can lift and carry a tombstone stated to weigh half a ton from the cemetery to his house, and flipped a car over with his bare hands. Conversely, his speed is nothing special, and he's shown nothing that says he's anything but average when it comes to this area. His stamina would need to be enhanced somewhat, as repeatedly performing acts that most people would consider impossible would realistically require a similar amount of stamina. Not to mention lifting a 1,000-pound tombstone and carrying it to his own home. Michael's durability, while seemingly incredible, isn't actually impossible to survive. It actually isn't impossible to survive what he has. Over the course of the first movie, Michael was shot 4 times, a 5th in the head, and then survived a car crash. First up, while surviving 4 gunshots is impressive, judging by how his body reacted as well as seeing the bullet holes of 2, at least 3 of these were shoulder wounds, and the actual chest shot seemed to stun him. Hell, even surviving a bullet to the head isn't as unbelievable as you'd think, as there are many documented accounts of people in real life surviving this experience. What does make this impressive, however, is that he survived all of this in a single night and lived without any medical attention afterwards. However, I wouldn't put his durability too far above a normal human, as he was ultimately killed by being gunned down by the police. I do, however, want to add that Michael clearly has an insane amount of endurance and pain resistance, being able to simply shrug or walk off getting shot point blank. Both of these slashers are clearly able to overpower and generally outperform normal humans, but when it comes to one another, there's a pretty clear advantage. Michael is clearly the stronger of the two. While Jason is able to easily lift full-grown men and women, Michael has been shown to move thousands of pounds on his own. Both of these two are in their prime. While Michael is about 10 years younger than Jason, it's clear that Jason still has a few years before he will truly begin to feel the effects of age and is in great shape, so I don't see that being a factor here. While neither truly stands out with their speed, Jason has consistently shown to be better at dodging attacks, whereas Michael just seems to tank whatever's thrown at him. So I will be giving Jason the slight speed advantage. Neither slashers really has any standout feats for stamina, so I'm comfortable calling this area even, with a slight preference for Michael due to him regularly performing more feats. Durability, while somewhat even, is overall better for Michael. Both Jason and Michael, while not as indestructible as their classic counterparts, can take a serious amount of punishment before going down, as both have survived blows that have a very high chance to kill. Michael, however, has consistently survived more of these and has a higher pain tolerance, unlike Jason, who will react to pain like a normal human. Overall, Jason's own strength, stamina, and durability just isn't enough to keep up with Michael's when put head to head with each other, and his very slight speed advantage in no way makes up for this. So I give Michael the clear edge in physical abilities. I will be granting Jason a total of 2 weapons for this fight. The first being his trademark machete. This weapon is a 2-foot single-edged blade with a very versatile usage, being capable of both cutting and chopping away at his victims, and is sharp enough to go through solid bone. The second weapon I will be giving Jason is his bow and about 10 arrows. This version of Jason was apparently a skilled archer, being able to hit a moving target through the head with 1 shot. This skill was likely gained from childhood, as in his bunk at Crystal Lake, he kept trophies from his archery competitions. I will similarly be granting Michael 2 weapons for this fight, the first of which is his favorite method of killing, the kitchen knife. The average kitchen knife of this size is about 10 to 12 inches long and is sharp enough to carve through bone. The second weapon I will give him is the standard fire axe, likely made with fiberglass or more likely hickory wood handle. While this is a tool mainly used for cutting through doors and other large objects, in case of fires, for someone of Michael's size and strength, this could easily be used to deal lethal damage to an opponent. This is a pretty simple category to break down. Starting off, Jason has the overall range advantage of having and being skilled with a ranged weapon that, if used right, would take out Michael easily. After that, comparing their favorite weapons, there really isn't a comparison, as Jason's machete is both larger and more versatile than Michael's kitchen knife. Michael's fire axe does have a bit more range than a knife and could likely be used as a defensive tool thanks to the materials used, overall putting it about even with or slightly above Jason's machete. Overall, however, a ranged fallback weapon that Jason could use to create distance and shoot down Michael gives him more of a chance in the long run. And so, I give Jason the edge in weapons and equipment. Unlike in my other matchups, I will not be using lightsaber fighting forms for this match, as neither is a trained combatant and there aren't any fight scenes to analyze. So I will mainly be going over their tactics and preferred methods instead. Having spent most of his life as a hermit in the woods, Jason would have needed to learn to hunt and develop a great skill for stealth, which has served him greatly in killing those who wander into his territory, even developing a keen sense for tracking and detecting those he is after. While Jason is capable of running down his target or overpowering his prey, he seems to prefer using stealth to hunt and eliminate his targets, going as far as to set up elaborate traps using live bait to draw people into favorable positions or into bear traps. This version of Jason is also an excellent ambush hunter, waiting for people to separate and then sneaking up on them and eliminating them, such as with Trent, Lawrence, Chewie, Donnie, Bree, and a police officer. I'd even go as far as to say that this is probably the smartest version of Jason on screen, with his tactical knowledge and hunting experience putting him above his classic counterpart, even having gone as far as to set up an elaborate alarm system to track people as they moved through his territory. To be blunt, this version of Michael is the stereotypical single-minded slasher. His main method of killing is to spot his target and then walk straight at him while destroying anyone or anything in his way. This is even further shown when focused on a certain goal, such as when he was trying to capture Laurie and simply ignored the fact that Dr. Loomis was shooting him. That being said, however, Michael isn't completely mindless as a killer, as he's been shown that he can be creative in the moment, using his chains to disarm and kill a guard, as well as using stealth when the opportunity is there. However, he does seem to be more in his element when simply using his overwhelming physicality to take out his victims in the moment. Like the last one, this is a very simple category to break down. While Michael clearly has a talent for murder and can even use a simpler version of Jason's skill set, that's the issue here, as with the exception of brute forcing things, Jason can literally do everything Michael can, but much better. He's better at sneaking up and silently killing, he's better at separation and the right moment to strike, and he's better at adapting to and planning around in a specific environment. To sum it up, while both Jason and Michael are psychopaths who simply follow what their deluded minds tell them, Jason has the advantage of being a skilled hunter with decades of experience. On top of that, while at most, Michael has been an active killer for just over 2 years, spending most of his life locked up in a sanitarium with no opportunity to grow and develop as a killer. And it is for these reasons I give Jason the edge in tactics. Let's set up this fight. Let's say that it takes place in Arkham Asylum and that both were being held there and that they meet while the main escape is taking place. Jason stalked through the halls of Arkham, being careful not to be seen by any of the inmates. The slasher didn't care about any of the other psychotics running around or getting involved in the main breakout. He simply wished to return to his camp so he could get back to protecting what was his. Finally reaching the lobby, he walked into a massacre. The bloody and dismembered bodies of the staff adorning the room like decorations, and at its center, Michael Myers was grunting and growling as he repeatedly stabbed a man wearing a burlap sack. Jason tilted his head, watching the shape finish off his victim before turning and spotting Jason. Michael stared back at the hockey mask wearing man, unsure of how to take this staring. However, seeing the man's own bloody blade and bow strung over his shoulder, Michael didn't want to take any chances. He had his sister to find after all, and couldn't have this other person getting in the way. So, reaching down and pulling an axe out of a clown's skull, Michael stomped towards Jason, who, seeing Michael's intent, does the same thing, picking up speed as they neared each other. Jason would strike first, swinging his machete down at Michael's head, but the white masked slasher would block the blade with his axe. Jason follows up his attack with a punch to Michael's face, but he doesn't even flinch. Jason brings his blade back up again to strike, but Michael simply catches Jason's arm, holding it in place before headbutting him, forcing him back enough to Michael to have room to swing his axe. But Jason steps back, dodging and chopping into Michael's arm with his machete. Again, not even reacting to the damage, Michael lifts his axe overhead and brings it down, only for Jason to evade the attack, this time sidestepping and slashing at the legs of the other slasher. If Michael even noticed the hit, he doesn't show it, as he immediately reaches out, backhanding Jason, stunning him long enough for Michael to get a hold of his head and smash it through a window before throwing the man back across the lobby with a single hand. Jason staggers back to his feet as Michael stomps over to him, dropping the axe in favor of his knife and grabbing Jason by the throat, lifting him up into the air, choking and slowly stabbing into Jason's side as the smaller man tries to escape the grip. Finally getting loose enough, Jason pulls his arm back and stabs Michael in the gut, getting the first real reaction out of him in the form of a pained grunt and dropping Jason. Both men pull their respective blades out of the other, and Michael goes into a rage, grabbing his axe once again and swinging it over and over again as all Jason can do is back away before hitting a box on the wall and stepping out of the way just as Michael hits the fuse box, killing power for their wing to the asylum. Michael tries finding his way in the dark for a minute, unable to find his location or his target. That is, until he feels Jason's machete chop into his back and he spins around swinging the axe but hitting nothing. Knowing Jason is in the dark, Michael readies himself and feels another strike from Jason, again swinging and hitting nothing. Jason barely steps back in time as Michael swings his axe, silently stepping back and moving around Michael. Jason lets the larger man's heavy footsteps and grunts cue him into his location, and he plays a game of cat and mouse with him for a short while. By the end of it, Michael being covered in large cups and slightly staggered, but royally pissed off. That is, until the backup generator finally kicks in, turning the lights back on, and looking around to try and find Jason, he finally lays his eyes on the man who is across the hall, already with his bone drawn, and he lets an arrow fire, hitting him in the solar plexus. Michael flinches at the hit but starts running at Jason, who fires another arrow at Michael, who keeps clearing the distance, not letting the arrows that sink into his arm and chest slow him down in the slightest. Jason, knowing that he doesn't want to let Michael grab onto him, goes for a kill shot, hitting Michael in the eye just as he readies his axe, letting out a scream of rage and agony as he drops the weapon. Jason goes in to finish the job with another arrow, but Michael, now blinded by the pain and anger, gets back up, taking a point-blank arrow through the shoulder and tackles Jason through the wall into a cell. The bigger killer makes a point to snap the bow in half before stomping several times on Jason's chest and even his face, creating a new blood splatter as Jason's nose and lips are busted open. Michael then puts his weight on Jason to stop him from moving and begins to savagely beat him, hitting over and over again, finally hitting so hard that his hockey mask cracks open, showing his deformed face. Michael quite honestly doesn't care at all about what he sees and goes and readies both of his arms overhead to deliver a final blow. However, this gives Jason just enough time to reach out and shove his thumb into Michael's injured eye, setting him reeling and getting up, making his move. Michael recovers from the initial shock and looks around, seeing that Jason has vanished, but couldn't help but leave a trail of blood. Following it, Michael foregoes retrieving his axe and decides that he wants this kill to feel personal, pulling out his knife and eventually finding that the blood trail has ended at another cell, and enters to see a figure cowering and trying to cry in the corner with a blanket over himself. Michael stomps to the covered man, who tries to make himself look smaller in fear. Michael finally gets the figure and rips the blanket away, only for the man in question to not be Jason, but a man with half of his face heavily scarred and with a fresh and severe bruise around where his vocal cords would be. Michael realizes too late that this was a trap when Jason swings his machete down on Michael's shoulder, chopping through the bone and right into his chest. Unable to even feel his right arm and beginning to go into shock, Michael falls to his knees and is helpless when Jason circles around and raises his machete one last time before cleaving straight through his skull, cutting his head in two. And with that, I declare Jason Voorhees, the Camp Blood Slasher, the winner. As with most of the requested matchups this season, I wasn't too sure what to expect here, as I'm personally more familiar with the classic variations of these characters, but after watching and regrettably rewatching these films, this was actually a very interesting match, as putting the smarter and stealthier Jason up against the larger and stronger Michael was a very interesting question, but in this case, I think brains beat brawn. Now, this isn't always the case, as Jason doesn't stand a chance in hell of beating Michael in a head-to-head fight, as he can barely even compete with him in a physical sense. But I think Jason is smart enough to realize this and would fall back on his stealth skills as well as that deadly bow and arrow to either wear Michael down with a sneak attack or silently eliminate him before he even knows what's going on. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you agree that Jason's superior stealth and years of experience would let him overcome the younger slasher, or do you think Michael's insane strength and endurance would let him overwhelm the hockey-masked hunter? Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and if I got anything wrong, please feel free to correct me. Also, I have a Twitter where I occasionally post updates or just bitch about things, so be sure to follow me there if you care about that sort of thing. As always, I'm Ray932, and I will see you next time.
こんなところに見つけました。間違いないです。
君は
危ない。障害は取り除きます。ペルソナレイズアップ。
She was weird.
Now, where did that faunus riffraff run off to?
What did you call me?
Oh, I'm really sorry. I definitely didn't think you heard me.
No, not you. You.
Me? I don't know.
You call me friend. Am I really your friend?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Sensational. We can paint our nails and try on clothes and talk about cute boys.